Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com. Accomplishment Coaching is proud to present the following fine programming. Accomplishment Coaching, where coaches lead and leaders coach. AccomplishmentCoaching.com.
Welcome to Leadership Insights Radio.
Thanks for listening in on this episode. We are speaking to leaders about how they can be more effective by having a higher level of mindfulness. And so to join us in this conversation, we have Catherine Sherlock. And I appreciate you sharing your wisdom. In the first segment, if you've missed the prior two segments, first segment we talked about why leaders can be broken and some of the emotions and different things that can drive that. In the second segment, we talked about why leaders are often experiencing stress, and part of that has to do with the goals that they've set and how we need to perhaps reassess and readdress those goals. And so, Catherine, I find it interesting that as we go through this life journey, there are things that we have to learn, and there are things that we have to unlearn. And also, there's things that we've learned that we've kind of gotten wrong. And one thing that you brought to my attention is you referred to as the mindfulness myth. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, for sure. The mindfulness myth to me is this idea of being in the present. And it's really common, and it's really sold as a key piece of mindfulness. And I think it's a myth, and here's why. There is no single now. Our consciousness is really multi-layered and complex, and the world that we live in is very complex as well. So when you're trying to be in the present, it's like, well, there is no single present. What are you trying to do? There is no single present. So what you can do is actually, I think the better term is awareness. What you can do is develop awareness and realize that there are all these levels and places that you can be. You can be aware of the body, you can be aware of the mind, you can be aware of the whole room, you can be aware of a very focused thing, but you can't do all these things at one time. So you've got some choices to make. And where can you put your awareness in this moment to have the best outcome? Now, the other thing about trying to be in the present is that it can actually be quite destructive. There's a lot of misunderstanding around it. For example, people will try to be present to everything in the room. So all the noises in the room, like maybe a ceiling fan or all the talking conversation, all these noises, plus whatever task they're trying to get done. And what that actually ends up doing, rather than making your brain healthier, is you can actually, over time, fracture your consciousness so that you're not able to think better. And the whole point of this is to be able to think and function better in the world. And I think we aren't asking ourselves the right questions when we look at this.
Yeah, we're overloading ourselves unnecessarily. There's a reason why our bodies have evolved and adapted to filter things out. As much as the challenge it can be, there's a reason why when you look out across a scene, there are certain things you focus on, and you, in some ways, become blind to the other things because your brain needs that in order to manage everything, correct?
Yeah, and your brain, on top of that, Wade, your brain needs a break. Like right now, we are so infused with our technological devices, with our phones and all those things. So there used to be a time when we would daydream much more. We would be standing in line, we would be bored, and your mind would go off and wander. But that was actually highly creative and highly kind of a healing time for the brain. Now the first thing that we do is we pick up a phone and we start to take in information. And not only does that disconnect us from ourselves, because now we are taking someone else's opinion in over our own opinion, but it's keeping our brain from going into that relaxed state. So I'll give you an example about um, mindfulness and awareness, the difference, or the difference that between being in the present and mindfulness. So when I work from home much of the time, and I often will be working over something or coming and trying to come up with a new article or a new idea or whatever, and I'll get up to go and make lunch. Now mindfulness would say that I sit there and I'm, as I'm chopping the veggies, I'm very mindful of doing it. That is not what I do. I completely let go of my mind at that time, and it's when I come up with all kinds of insights because I have let go of my mind. But this whole idea of being in the present that is so pushed would have people staying mindful to them cutting vegetables. I think that's a great practice if your goal is to, learn to focus your mind better. But again, it's back to that, what are your goals for this practice? Don't be present just because somebody told you to do it. Actually question, what are the outcomes of these practices?
Yeah, it's fascinating. We get so caught up with trying to find a silver bullet, trying to, find like a one solution. And that causes us to not recognize that many times there are two positive things, and they can be both extremes of the situation, right? There's value in both bookends of that circumstance. And so I love that you're sharing with us, it struck me kind of humorously that there's a competitive advantage to doing nothing sometimes.
Yeah, there's a competitive advantage to doing nothing and also just to resting your mind. And also, again, that being in the present thing is often a fear-based idea that we actually can be in the present, that we can be and you can't be in the present when you're all the time. It's not possible. But it becomes this fear-based thing of trying to be in the present all the time. And when that happens, you actually take in less information because you're in this kind of concentrated, anxious state, and you have access to less because you're trying so hard to be present.
Yeah. We overwhelm ourselves. And I'd like to, call to the attention of the leaders that are listening, the executives, the business owners and such. This is something you need to embrace on the micro level, but it is acknowledged on the macro level. You hear about high level executives going on a 6-month sabbatical, right? Because it's recognizing there's value in that downtime. And I would encourage the leaders out there to recognize you need to extend that to your employees. There are times that they need to unwind their brain, but that'll actually make them better in the long run. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes down to, again, that emotional pressure. How can what is causing the emotional pressure, and how can you decrease that for yourself and for employees, for your teams? Um, Again, you want to be coming into awareness. So awareness is the ability to kind of move into different states as needed, to move into a flow state because you understand how to move your brain from a beta state to a theta state, those kinds of things. Um, we used to live obviously very different lives centuries ago as humans on this earth, and we had this we used to, when we walked the landscape, to be, there were things on the landscape or animals and things that were dangerous to us. So we had to proceed in a different way. And the way we did it was to keep a very wide, um, what would you call it? Like a
Awareness?
wide glance. What's that?
Awareness?
A wide glance. Well, it's with your vision. Like you
Oh,
kept a very wide vision of the landscape. You had to be able to see everything moving on the landscape. Now that's a very relaxed position. And then when you needed to focus in on something, like say there was a bear coming or something, you would take your vision and you would focus it in on that one item. But once that was gone, you would again relax and focus out. I think we've kind of lost that. Can you imagine the difference between, because staying in that kind of high focus all the time is exhausting. But imagine going into a meeting where you kind of widen your focus out and you're able to take in much more in that meeting because you've got this wide, relaxed state
Right.
and focus. And then when you need to, you focus in. Now, that if that becomes a way of living, a way of functioning in your daily life, in your business life, all of a sudden you have much more energy, and you are also have just greater levels of awareness.
Yeah, and we've got about a minute left, so to kind of bring this in for a landing, and then we'll move on to the next segment. It's one thing that's really jumping out to me, and I encourage everybody to go to highermindfulness.com and read Catherine's blogs and learn all that she is sharing there, because I'm learning a lot here. But one thing you're bringing to my mind is how technology, we need to recognize and acknowledge it's addictive. And just like we might like sugar, our bodies may crave sugar, but our higher consciousness has to recognize, yeah, but too much sugar is bad for me, so I can't allow myself to indulge in that. Well, in the same way, getting hooked on that dopamine rush of checking my Facebook, checking my texts, checking my emails, looking online can be bad for us as well. And we need to acknowledge that, recognize it, and adapt ourselves to that recognized reality. So we're going to learn more about that and many other things in our next segment. We're speaking with Catherine Sherlock. Again, you can learn more about her online at highermindfulness.com. We'll be back in a moment with more great information and to wrap up this interview on Leadership Insights Radio, powered by WSRadio.com.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children.
After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
I've heard this is like one of the best pizza spots in town.
Yes, it is.
I'll do a slice of pepperoni, slice of vegetarian.
You got it.
And I will pay for all of that in 3 days.
In 3 days? What's that mean?
Well, wait, you accept credit cards. That money's not going to hit your account for 3 days anyway.
I need my money quicker.
At Chase, we hear you. With Express Funding, card payments are in your Chase account the next business day. Go to chase.com/expressfunding. Chase for business, so you can.
Compensated participation. All businesses are subject to credit approval. Not all clients are eligible for next business day funding, and additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
Do you want to be a professional coach? Are you in business trying to make a real difference with people you manage or work with? Have you started a coaching practice that isn't quite getting off the ground? Get the skills you need to be a successful coach today with the Coaches Training Program from Accomplishment Coaching. The Coaches Training Program will show you how to help others focus and be more fulfilled. Whether you want to improve your company's bottom line or create a thriving coaching practice, Accomplishment Coaching can give you the distinctions and practices you need to coach others effectively today. Accomplishment Coaching has spent 6 years developing a cutting-edge coaches training program that will have you ready to coach people professionally in just 12 months, and you don't have to take time off work to do it. To find out more about the Coaches Training Program, just call 1-888-548-6813. That's 1-888-548-6813. 6813.